you can't do AI well and implement it and get the 10x returns if you don't have some sort of digital platform in your business.
But you really don't have a choice. Otherwise, you will be left behind.
If they are not upskilling their employees, or if they're not actually taking some sort of AI strategy, digital transformation strategy, their best team members will leave and they will go look for a company that's more progressive.
When you look at your business as a business model and a scalable system, the first step is to diagnose where are the weak links in our business.
There's a bit of a pushback because it's so overwhelming. I find that leadership, they don't fully understand it and they're scared to start with a strategy on something they don't understand.
If you're investing in a business that doesn't have that characteristic, the risk of it being obsolete over time is high.
Welcome to another episode of Cutting Edge. My name is Moloisane. I lead the programs business here at Krause, and today I'm quite excited to be hosting this discussion on digital transformation in the small, medium enterprise development space. I'm joined by two lovely guests today. I've got Jason Krause. Jason is the CEO of The Art of Scale, a digital platform developed by Krause, and he will be delving into a little bit more detail as to what that is about. I'm also joined by Tanye van Themaat. Tanye is an AI expert and she works with accelerators, incubators and entrepreneurs. And she will also be delving into this topic with us today. So welcome both.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Thank you. So where do we start? Digital transformation is a buzz phrase and sometimes used incorrectly. So I wanted us to start by just unpacking what it is.
Awesome. Yeah. So this topic and this term has actually been used a lot over the last 10, 15 years, and it kind of has become a buzzword that's been overused. And I think especially now with AI coming on board, it's become more important than ever. Because in the past, a lot of businesses could have gotten away with not being digital. And I'll quickly explain what that means. So that is basically where you're starting to integrate technology into your business, where it's not just 100% manual, and you're training your employees, and it's a way of looking at new business models. There's a cultural shift as well. You have to relook at processes and systems to see how technology fits in. And companies could always get away with it, these small businesses, but the last couple of years, especially with AI, you can't do AI well and implement it and get the 10x returns if you don't have some sort of digital platform in your business. This means that your processes need to be clear. You need to have good data, clean data, because even ChatGPT, if you give it a messy Excel spreadsheet, won't exactly know what to do with it, and it could give you really strange answers. I don't know if you've tried that before. So there are a lot of principles that we need to think about now that have become more important than ever as we want to bring them into the digital transformation strategy. And I'd like to almost call it an AI-ready workforce, but also the AI adoption strategy, where it just becomes like where your business turns into an AI-first business, where AI isn't the last thing that you put the cherry on top. It's actually the way that you rethink how your business gets done, how your business model works, the process and system. So it's a whole new re-engineering. And I can elaborate even more on that, but I think I'll give Jason a chance to just jump in.
Yeah, so if we sort of take it up to a meta level, when we're working with SMEs, trying to support them to grow their business, we're really helping them progress through various defined life cycle stages. And typically from a startup, when you're in the startup phase, you're looking for product market fit. But when you're scaling, you're looking for business model market fit. And as Tanye says, digital technologies and AI technologies are driving rapid change in business model design. So it's not just about playing with IT on the fringes of your business. It's looking at how can you conceptually rethink how your business creates value, and therefore what business model fit looks like, not just today, but in a rapidly technologically advancing world, what it looks like in the future, and not the distant future, the very near future. So it really does change the game when thinking about how to support SMEs to grow their businesses.
And over time, I suppose what we've seen is the evolution of what digital transformation means and how we can actually leverage that. So what are some of these trends that you're seeing that are impacting the way that businesses, not just small businesses, think about their business models?
Yeah, so for me, unfortunately, businesses aren't really thinking about it. So a lot of my clients, when I speak to them about AI, when I speak to them about getting their workforce ready or start identifying small opportunities, there's a bit of a pushback because it's so overwhelming. Because I find that leadership, they don't fully understand it and they're scared to start with a strategy on something they don't understand. So they're kind of pushing it a little bit to a later stage because in their minds they think they have to go and fully understand AI before they can come with a strategy. But I actually think AI is changing so quickly. This whole landscape is changing so quickly. You can't have a strategy that you've built over 6 months because then it's already outdated. So the way I see it is that you just jump in. You start training employees and you identify the employees that are actually keen on AI, keen on building, keen on automating, and you empower them a little bit more to start building small solutions and pull the rest of the organization with them. Because that takes a lot of the pressure off the CEOs to make all the decisions, set the plan, the goal. And I think it's also quite important for the CEOs to look at how like the systems and processes in their business so that they can scale. And this is where Jason and them are experts, is like the bigger picture processes, systems, and then you can look on top of those where AI fits into 10x. Jason, I don't know if you've got something to add there.
Yeah, so I think there is a default amongst SMEs to not doing anything. And I think it is, Tanya's right, it's driven by two things. One is, I don't know what this technology is all about, or these technologies are all about. And second of all, I don't know what to do with it. And so one's default position is just to do nothing and wait. But I don't think this is something that you can be reactive about. I do think you need to get on the front foot and be responsive. And in fact, you need to change that mindset of starting without knowing what the end outcome is, accepting that your strategy around how your business model evolves will emerge through a process of experimentation in the business. And so I think whereas there used to be the thought that once you found business model market fit, you just scale that business model. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think you need to be constantly innovating your business model in order to remain relevant while scaling the business model that you've got. But you really don't have a choice. Otherwise, you will be left behind. But it starts with the right mindset. And I think turning that mindset into a culture, organizationally, that embraces technology usage.
And I was just thinking as we were talking now that some entrepreneur out there might be asking, what's the urgency? And you've kind of already touched on it now to say you will be left behind. What does that look like?
So I think that there are two things there are two reasons why it's important to go now. One is I think for so long as you stay in this mindset of not doing anything, it becomes really hard. Well, it becomes a habitual way of thinking, and then it's very hard to respond fast once you're behind the curve. Also, I think once you're behind the curve, it's very hard to catch up. You have people go up the experience curve with leveraging digital technologies in their business to radically transform it. And I think there's a point at which you really can't catch up unless you think about doing something radically different to what you're doing today. And so I think those two factors create a real high risk around waiting for too long. And therefore, it's just urgent to get in and get going and learn by doing.
And Tanye, you actually started talking about it, but where does one start?
I just want to add something more. I wrote an article last week around the excuses that leadership make about why they're not doing the whole digital transformation jump. And often it's like the cost is too high, but there's a lot of free resources available out there, or they go, my team isn't ready, my team isn't skilled enough. And the reality is you will not be able to afford a super skilled AI digital transformation skills out there. You will have to build them within. But I think something that a lot of these leaders are missing is if they are not upskilling their employees, or if they're not actually taking some sort of AI strategy, digital transformation strategy, their best team members will leave and they will go look for a company that's more progressive. And then the ones that are left behind, they are actually messing with their futures because they're not teaching them the skills to stay relevant in the workplace. And I think it's really, really irresponsible because we know that about 80% of what we're doing, how we're doing it is going to change. And we need to focus on the more human elements, and the 20% that is left will become more important. So those skills are the ones that we need to develop in our employees and the people that we work with. So there's just this element of the longer you wait, the longer it's going to be to catch up. And I think a lot of people, like AI isn't quite 100% where the hype says it is, and people try it out and it doesn't work that well yet. So they go, wait, I'm going to wait and see which one wins. I'm going to wait and see. But there's a whole new, like Jason mentioned, this mindset shift where you actually have to rethink about how the world works. We come from a world where we Googled things, so it was keywords, and a world where we actually looked at how like software works is you put something in, something comes out, and it's deterministic. It stays the same. It's always the same. But AI, every time you put something in, something different comes out. It's not like it's quite an intricate process of explaining how it works, and I won't go into that now, but you need to start understanding how to think about it. And it's not an overnight just a skill that you learn, all of a sudden you understand it. It's a whole new way of thinking. And you need to start getting people ready. Like, you need to play the long game, because the more they start playing with it now, the more they're ready when AI is absolutely ready for whatever they want to do. And I think that's just, so for me, where to start is just educate people, just get them to be comfortable. We do a lot of training around this where we just show simple things. We start off with something super simple, how to make sure ChatGPT doesn't use your data to train on, how to prompt, how to reprompt, all the different tools, knowing which to use, what it can do, what it can't do, like responsible use. What these businesses also don't know is most of their employees are using some form of AI, and they're doing it, we call it shadow AI. So it's secretly done, and they're hiding it because first of all, they're scared of losing their job if their boss knows how efficient they are now using AI. And second of all, it seems like nobody's talking about it. So imagine people start talking about how they're being more efficient in their work, what it will do to a company, sharing examples. This becomes water cooler talk. I mean,
so I think one way to start learning about it is by using it. And so you ask, where should you start? The way we look at it is that when you look at your business as a business model and a scalable system, the first step is to diagnose where are the weak links in our business. You know, is it the product? Is it not delivering the benefits it should be? Is it somewhere else in the business? Is it in our distribution channels? And diagnose where the weakest links are in your business model, and then have a default position which says, what's the technology that we're going to use to solve this problem and unconstrain our business? And if you take that mindset to always discovering the solution through a technology lens, you will be forced to learn. And I think that also helps with, solving the problem first through the use of technology, lets you become comfortable with the technologies, and lets you create this mindset of, technology first solution for the problem we face.
And that's kind of what you've done with Out of Scale. So maybe you can just give us some insight into the thinking around building Out of Scale and what problem you're actually trying to solve there, and how you've managed to do that.
So in a previous life, Out of Scale provided business development support to SMEs through a coach-led delivery model. And what we found is that coach-led delivery model worked really, really well. It provided excellent support, but it was constrained. And it had a number of constraints around the fact that coaches aren't a scalable pool of experienced resources. And so with the rapid advancements occurring in digital and AI technologies, the problem we wanted to solve was to scale impact to BDSs through digital technologies, and then find the right role for coaches in that type of BDS technology-led business model. And that was the problem that we wanted to solve. I think there were a number of challenges that I can sort of unpack, which were just briefly highlight them, is that accessibility was difficult because you have to access the support through a coach, and you might not be located in the same way, in the same location. Usability was hard because it was a face-to-face interaction. Customization was hard because typically we would apply singular frameworks and try to multiply those across different use cases. Affordability wasn't what it could be with technology, and I think the other one is scalability. Is that we weren't coaches' knowledge is finite, and so there's a point at which a coach can't help an SME with a problem they've got. We decided to use digital technologies to solve those pain points. But the big problem was, how do we scale the impact and unconstrain, the coach-led delivery model?
And what are you seeing, Tanye, broadly in the market, working with other accelerators and incubators? What are some of these technologies that people are adopting, and what are the kind of problems that you're seeing solved using digital tools, AI, that kind of thing?
So something I've noticed, I'll take it one step back, is that, so I've worked with a couple of clients where we say, okay, cool, we want to start bringing AI solutions. We identify a high-level problem. But what I've realized is a lot of people do not understand their own workflows. If I ask them how they do something, they will give it to me in broad paintbrushes. Oh, I get the application, then I look at it, then I write the investment summary, then I do this, then I do that. But I need to understand exactly how they look at the application. So if they don't understand their workflows, we can't use AI and automation tools like Make.com or N8N or Zapier to automate the process. So there's a lot of time that I spent on understanding how they work. And this is something that you guys most probably also sit with, is things get done, but nobody knows how, because it's just kind of, nobody pays attention. So there's this first step of paying attention how you work, what you do, writing it down, so that you can start codifying it in a sense in AI, so that AI tools and automation tools can help you do it faster. And like what I really like seeing is, so we built a negotiator chatbot. So if you are going to go speak to a client or an investor, this chatbot was trained how to be really difficult and counter everything that you say, and teaching you how to negotiate. And it's quite powerful to do these type of things. You do it with when you work with entrepreneurs as well. If they're going to go out and meet a client, you actually help them prepare for this meeting by putting a really grumpy AI bot that acts as the opposite. You tell them who the client is, what you want to get done, and they just try and counter you on every level so that you're prepared. But what we've also done with coaches is we take some of the transcripts of their coaching meetings, and then we start analyzing that on how the coach can add more value, finding bottlenecks within the company. And imagine you have 5 coaching sessions with one person in a company plus 5 other people, so you've got 25 coaching sessions, and the data that you can pull from that to actually help the coaches do better and understand more deeply what the problems are and how to coach. Because when you're in the moment coaching, you have so much information that you have to think about. So I think there are all these tools, applications, coaching improvements, training as well. Looking at different elements. And I think one of the skills that entrepreneurs and business owners need to think about and try and apply is, the first one is just a little bit more systems thinking in a broader way, understanding how things fit together. And the second one is that critical thinking judgment, because now you can get 20,000 key messages for your business, but you actually sit with a situation where you don't know which one to choose. So choosing is going to be a big element, like how we make decisions, because ChatGPT can give us 20 great answers. Which one are you going to choose and why? And there are all these other skills that need to be built around that as well. But it's identifying those big systems and processes, but also training people to start thinking like that. Because those are the ones who are going to be 10x professionals, where they just completely leave the average professional because they understand how to leverage themselves and leverage their skill set with AI. So that's quite important.
As you're talking, I'm actually thinking about how most of us, and I think you touched on it earlier, to some extent are already using some of these tools, whether we're aware of it or we're not. And as you're talking about like systems thinking, critical thinking, I'm just thinking what shift are we supposed to already be making that gets us closer to being able to be more effective in the way that we use these tools? So where do I start, again, almost to go back to where does one start in embedding some of these skills around systems thinking, critical thinking, which are not widely available or are not skills that everyone has in our country. So where could one start to think about training others to think in this way? Because these are the people that are working in these organizations and actually affecting this kind of change that we want to make with these tools.
Well, I think if you think about the thinking process that Tanye was talking about, I think the first thing employees in SMEs need to do is they do need to understand the job to be done. Mm-hmm. What is the job I need done inside a business system with strengths and weaknesses? And so you need to own that outcome. The second thing I think you need to do, and this is what Tanye was saying earlier, is you just need to get in and start learning about what these technologies are capable of doing. And those capabilities, what they can do is rapidly changing over time. And then you've got to understand, if I understand the capability, what are the use cases for that capability? How might it apply inside our context? And could any of these use cases fit with this job to be done, either in whole or part? And that's the thinking that you need to be able to do. But you need to know all three pieces of that puzzle in order to know which technology to apply in what way to solve a particular job to be done. Which goes back to the point earlier on, is that you should always be looking at the job to be done through a technology lens, rather than how it's done today.
Yeah.
And you probably want to add to that.
And yeah, so I can give an example. Like last night, I was playing around with some of these AI agent code builders. So I was working with Windsurf, Replit, and Bolt. They all basically we use prompting, and like you type in what you want, and then it builds an app or a website or something for you. And I was just trying to build a simple snake game. You know that game where you have the arrows and you have to eat the block? And as I was playing around with it, I would just go, okay, cool, build me a snake game. Then I go, please turn the little block into an apple, and please turn the snake into a crocodile. And every time it eats the apple, then I type this. When it eats the apple, the background changes. And when it, please create a scoreboard, please create a login, please create, and I just start building this. I call this vibe coding. So you're just kind of playing around and typing and building these type of solutions. But something that I found is I actually don't know what things were called. And this was in the past. Like I would say, oh, please, can you do that loading thingy? And I don't know what the names are. So there's some background that you need to go learn, the basics, the first principles on are the names of the different buttons, what is possible, because we as a non-coder, you don't understand these things. You don't need to be able to code anymore, but you need to be able to think like a coder and put it all together. And that's where this the skill set is still important. So I created a whole list of what things are called, because I actually had no clue, and now I can use it a little bit better. And I'm still just at the phase where I'm comparing the different tools, and it's a lot of fun, but eventually you can build a full-on solution on this. And that's absolutely fascinating. So Susan, in a year's time, you're going to go, oh, I need a fitness tracker because I want to run a marathon, and you start just tracking every day, and you also track the food you eat to see how many calories you take and what you need to do, and you take a photo of the food and an AI analyzes it, and you just build your own personal fitness app, just like that. And that's the skills that we need to build in organizations, but also on a wider scale where individuals can use this as well. Because I've mentioned this before, we can't just hire people who know this, we need to create the AI builders. And some people are just going to be AI users. They're going to use ChatGPT to help a report, but then there's a next level where people start actually building a little chatbot. And then there's a next level where they build a chatbot with an automation. And then there's a next level where they then start bringing in their own documentation. Like, there are all these different levels and elements that you can bring in. And not everyone's going to do everything, but you want to identify those people so that they can help you like lift the company up. You can't just have the leader going, we need to do this. In the past it was, oh, we're now using Monday.com, everybody use it. Oh, but you need to like let it almost trickle up and see how people use it and how they're creative, and like give people licenses. It's to test, see who's keen, train them.
Yeah, so we're finding that you only know what's possible from a technology and the number of use cases by diving in there and starting to use the technology. And whilst we might initially start with a top-down problem, what you find is that as you understand the use cases better, so it creates opportunities for you to discover how to plug other gaps or how to improve in other areas. So it is a bottom-up, top-down process, but it's got to be driven by, as we've said earlier, by a culture of curiosity and ongoing innovative thinking, but by embracing technology inside your thinking process.
Yeah, and I think what I've noticed is that a lot of people are talking about what is possible with AI, and very few people are actually trying it in the way that you've both described. And so there's something there about a culture of just starting small and starting to see the benefits at a small scale of what is actually possible, and then taking it from there in terms of building on to it. As you described, you start at a basic level and you kind of keep building on it, but with the understanding of what use cases are actually available for me to start testing this technology on, which is so critical in actually building momentum around these technologies and the use of these technologies in different spaces.
Yeah, I think momentum's a good word. Maybe I can illustrate this with an example from Art of Scale, or the platform. Is that one of the tools on the platform is a scale-up X-ray. It allows an SME at a point in time to diagnose exactly where they sit in their business growth life cycle and pinpoint the weak links in their business that need to be fixed. And it's driven by an underlying diagnostic engine. And what that allowed is an ability to understand at a point in time what you need to fix and how to fix it was linked to recommendations. And what we then, so that was the use case for the technology that we had. But then we thought, what if we could, as and when these recommendations were implemented, it was possible to automatically update where the SME is on their business growth life cycle and dynamically recommend a next set of recommendations, so that the SME was always working on scaling their business. But we would never have got to that second use case if we hadn't used the technology in the first place. Yeah. And so it is a voyage of discovery where there's a virtuous cycle to getting in, solving problems with the technology, and discovering how you can do so much more. And I think that builds momentum. And it's actually quite hard over time to catch up when an organization has got to the point where it is curious, it has this innovation built into its culture and its mindset, and it has got momentum behind the digital transformation of its business.
I think there's also, I think you're spot on with that, where you identify where there are bottlenecks in your processes, but also bring the culture up to scratch, where it becomes a culture of efficiency and trying to identify where we can do better. And I think there is a lot of pushback, because one of the other excuses I hear leaders say is, my employees will push back because they're scared of losing their jobs, or they're not feeling comfortable with this. And it is a reality. Like, AI is gonna create a lot of obsolete jobs. So that's also where the responsibility for individuals and like the leadership team to actually upscale. But what people still don't fully understand, and I found this with a lot of clients, they almost want me to build a solution, and they press a button and it just pops out on the other side. And these are like highly skilled individuals. And I just say to them, but we need your brain in the process. So I don't like building something that happens in a black box and there it comes out at the end, because you need at certain points to get feedback and interaction. So the thing, what I love to build is a little bit of a chat bot in between where you still get input. What about this? What about that? What about this? And then it does all the hard, repetitive, tedious stuff and gives you output. And that's the thing that people miss is on certain things, sure, AI machine learning is going to run things on its own. But where it's going to have the most value is almost as an enhancer, where you get your employees to figure out the tedious, boring things that kills their soul. We all have those things that we just said, that report that takes us 4 days to write, which isn't necessary. You could write it in half a day with AI. So I like saying with AI. And then we actually get them to like identify those so that they can then up their game on the other elements that are more strategic, that are more human. We will always be needed because AI doesn't have the context we have. So even if you give it like 20 pages of context, it still doesn't have your context because you've got the context of yours, which is like terabyte. Don't even know how much that is, but just think about that. So there's elements that you know that you don't know that you can't feed into an AI system. And that's why you need to bring it up and you need to start identifying and getting everyone on board as well.
Yeah. I agree fully. I think, what we don't realize is there's something that innately makes us human and you can't actually replicate that. And so I think in the thinking, it's what is there that you can replicate and, will actually make your life easier by replicating. But actually, there will be some jobs that we lose, but there'll be more that we create. And so we need to be actually thinking about these tools as being partners to the work that we need to do as opposed to replacing us in the work that we do. And it looks different in every organization in terms of what partnership looks like with the machine. But over time, it just becomes obvious in the different spaces that we're in terms of where that opportunity actually is. So I want to take a slightly different gear. As we were talking, I was just thinking about if I was an investor in the small, medium enterprise development space, what does this mean for me? Like, what does this mean in terms of my investment? How do I think differently about the way that I invest in the advent of what these technologies actually mean in the small, medium enterprise development space? I don't know if you have thoughts on what that could mean.
Two thoughts. I guess from an investor perspective, it depends on what stage of business you're investing in, but let's just make it, for simplicity's sake, not get into that. But I think what, from an investor perspective, it certainly means, I think, taking a view on the extent to which the organization that you're investing in actually has embraced this concept of digital transformation inside its culture. Whether innovation is embedded into the way the organization does what it does. And to Tanya's point, whether leaders are leading courageously with a mindset that accepts that their business is going to change rapidly over time as these technology advances accelerate. Because if you're investing in a business that doesn't have that characteristic, the risk of it being obsolete over time is high. The second, I think it was possible to invest in businesses where there was proven business model market fit, there was market traction, proven business model market fit, and you could say, well, let's invest in that business for a period, because for a period of time, our holding period, we can bank on this business delivering certain returns. I don't know if that's true anymore. Yeah. You would always worry about it being future fit would be somebody else's problem. Yeah. I'm not sure that that's true. So I think you're looking for a culture that embraces innovation and digital transformation and actually is showing some form of future fitness inside its business model based upon a sense of the impact of digital technology in that sector or inside that business model, would be my take on it.
Yeah. So I think if you look at the types of businesses, when we look at the digital transformation element. So an AI native business is basically a business that was started when AI was around, or just completely transformed, where AI is fully at the core of everything that gets done. And investors need to think about, is this like an AI company or AI-enabled company as well? So I think like most of the investors and like most of the businesses in South Africa are more AI-enabled. Then you also need to look at like, are they currently busy having some sort of AI-first transformation where they rethink a lot of it, not just optimize, but rethink. So you can optimize where you just go, oh, if I add here and fit it in your current process, this will work better, versus let's just scrap it and start from scratch. How should it look? You know, if we were starting it today, what would we build? And this is a tough thing because you need to be educated on what is possible, how it works, have the right minds in the room. So that's where the like culture and the education becomes important. And then I would also look at the core needs going to be important, because you're going to now see, oh, I can press a button and have 20 pieces of content on everything all the time, and the market gets flooded. But if there's no need, if the customer doesn't have a job to be done, then there's no point in starting the business. So you almost like look at the business model, unless it's an AI business specifically that builds AI solutions, you look at the business model separately and you see what is it doing differently, and maybe there are some ceilings that we had in the past. For example, a doctor could only see X amount of patients, or a cashier could only do X amount of transactions, where AI now all of a sudden opens up certain possibilities. But you have to start thinking about the business model, but also then how are they driving it? Like, if you are an entrepreneur now, you can have a whole marketing team by just spending 2 or 3 days building the marketing team and having a few AI bots and agents in the back end that do most of it for you. They understand your tone of voice. They can even post it to certain elements. So as a startup, you actually have such an advantage. It's like a great time to start something now. If you have a core need, you can just go build all these additional elements, and you can actually take your business a lot further than you could in the past, because you don't need that much money and people. You don't just need people. In the past, when we needed to 10x, we brought in more people and maybe built some systems as well, but there was also an element that we were limited. And that's what I would look for as an investor, is what are they doing differently? But is there a need, and are they using what they have available to actually 10x early on?
Yeah, almost like a probability of disruption, and how the business is responding to that probability of disruption, and then obviously making an informed decision based on that. One of the things I was thinking about as you were talking, Jason, was how something like the Art of Scale has actually created an opportunity for what we do to scale. That's one of the first things that you said, you know. So instead of, as an investor in a non-financial support type of program, investing in just 10 businesses for X amount of money, that same X amount of money could actually have far more reach in terms of what we can do with that money for the support of entrepreneurs. So that's maybe another thing.
Well, I think that's what this the Art of Scale is, a business scaling platform, and digital business scaling platform for SMEs to use on almost a self-service, self-help basis in order to scale their business, and that can be embedded in BDS programs, as you say. So for an investor who has a portfolio of investee companies, there's a real opportunity to apply this business scaling platform across the investee companies at a fairly low cost. It's a monthly subscription, and that enables the CEO and the leadership team to understand where they are in their scaling journey, what they need to do next in order to scale the business. It's got all the tools and content in the form of courses and books that they need that are linked to the recommendations. So it's recommendation linked content, together with some other tools that help them execute well. And they can use these tools on their own. the other part of it is that if you want support from a coach, you can get support from a coach. But that coach support is then directed to providing particular value to solving an intractable problem that you've got. And the benefit is that the coach has visibility of critical information on your platform, and so they can apply their experience and their knowledge in so very precise ways to support you at your point of need, rather than more generally. So you're absolutely right, and that's the rationale behind the platform is to, through making it a self-service tool, to enable more SMEs to scale, for greater impact.
I can completely relate to that. We often hear from our clients that a lot of the propositions that they see are quite generic in nature. And they're constantly looking for opportunities to create hyper-customization for particular businesses, and off the back of that hyper-customization then create this value. So for me, what you're saying is almost saying like there's an opportunity to leverage what's out there in these tools to actually start to really zone into where the business requires the support, and then to actually make sure that you maximize the investment around those areas of support that are very particular to that particular business. So,
yeah, and you can track the impact in the business. So for an investor, being able to measure that this self-help support is actually delivering value is quite easy to do. Measures it in two ways. One, essentially it measures whether your business is developing along its growth path, and that is determined by whether the milestones on your growth path are actually being left in the rearview mirror or not. And second of all, whether the weak links are being closed, and therefore your business is highly scalable and can continue on its growth path. Two very easy metrics to interpret. And then there are two metrics around whether your leadership team is scaling its ability to support the growth of the business or lead the growth of the business. And there's two easy metrics there. So and these correlate with successful growing businesses. So the investor can know whether the platform in the hands of their investee company is actually doing the job they want it to do.
Yeah, so something that I also like about Art of Scale, it does tackle the individual's mindset as well, creating habits that scale. Yeah. And though those habits that scale are like almost figuring out how to just be good if you set goals on following up, how teams meetings should be structured, because people don't know, and it's often practice that you need. So like we follow the 70-20-10 rule of learning, where only 10% of learning and implementation or getting things done actually happens by reading a book or watching a course. A massive 70% happens by doing. And then the other 20% is by talking to people, mentorship, engagement, sharing with your team. And this you can apply to in bringing AI into the business, to creating those habits that scale. And every element, when people start talking and sharing and being held accountable, you actually start building these really, really important mindsets. And that's the important part, right? And also, like, the other elements is if you start bringing into these meetings, you start going, okay, how is everyone using AI? First of all, you start learning from each other, but also you can identify if people are using AI irresponsibly, because people don't understand it and they might just ask it to craft an email and just send the email off without reading it, and AI misunderstood something in their context. So you have to teach people to be responsible as well. What can be put into AI, what is risky to put into AI, how to use it well, but with that, the right habits, and talking and sharing and holding people accountable on many levels, where it's not just the mindset or using AI or using it well, or like what systems and workflows are you identifying, but really just pushing all of that forward in a really kind and gentle way, because it does take time, but consistency is very important here.
Yeah.
So can I add to that? Because that's really important. When we talk about digital transformation, the point that we've already made is that for businesses to digitally transform, there needs to be the right mindset and the right habits. So having a curious, innovative mindset when it comes to technologies, and then figuring out, creating habits around just using it and figuring out what it can do. But the same thing applies to whether or not this platform actually delivers success in the hands of a CEO and a leadership team. They need to have the right mindset and they need to adopt the right habits. Because unless they embrace the tool as a digital tool that they can use in order to drive success in the business, and they're willing to change the way they've done things, their habits, so in this case their execution habits, and adopt new habits, the tool is just a tool. And it won't deliver those measurable goals and the impact. And so what we've done inside the platform is try to solve that problem with embedding sort of behavioral science in our workflows and gamification in order to create leaderboards and so catalyze the desire to change. But it essentially is a big problem unless you are willing to embrace change, and in this case, as you said, disruptive change. You're going to stay where you are. In fact, that won't be good enough.
Yeah. And Tanye, what you touched on actually segues quite nicely into where I was going. So we spent a large part of the conversation today talking about all the ways we can leverage technology positively. But we do know that there are risks inherent in the use of some of these technologies. And so if you're new to it and you're still trying to figure out, you could fall into the trap of making some of these mistakes in the use of these technologies. What do those mistakes look like potentially?
Yeah, I think like the most important one is that like AI isn't like Google, where it's actually crawled the website and then saved the website as is somewhere and on a little shelf. And when you ask for something, it goes, oh, this website fits the topic you've asked for, and it gives you the whole website the way someone wrote it. It's basically a predictability machine and a pattern recognition machine. So it learned on everything on the internet. It took all the words and it started looking at the different words, breaking them down, and then seeing how they fit together. And they create weights between those words, and that creates some sort of pattern that the large language model then has. So what you then get from there is when you put in a sentence, if you say Mary had a little, 100% of the time you're going to get lamb, because that was what it learned on the internet and all the data that it was learning from. But if you go and put something else in and you say, the little boy named George had a lot of, each time you'll get something different. You can run it the same, but you'll get something different. So the way you put words and how you put them together matters. If you're using polite language, it will associate that with more polite language that it saw how it was fitting together. That's why people joke around saying you have to say please and thank you, but it's the tone that matters because it responds in the tone that you give it as well. And then you also need to know that it just predicts the next word, the most likely next word. So it doesn't understand what you're asking, and it doesn't understand what it's telling you. It just gives you some sort of predictable output. So you still have to go and read it because it can make things up. We've seen recently that like lawyers try to ask for court cases and it made up a few court cases. I've seen it a lot where it just says stuff and I'm like, are you kidding me? At some point you could ask it what was a collaboration between Beyonce and Shakespeare, and it would came up with some sort of song that they apparently did, which we know is not true. So you have to always double check everything. Also check, don't just write an email carefully, read it. We become really lazy. I think that's the other big risk. We become too lazy to read things. We trust AI too much. So your responsibility is still to use it well, read everything, make sure it's not lying, double check on various occasions. I'll often use Google, or I'll just double check it with Perplexity, which actually is some sort of search engine, like has some sort of search engine function. So that's your responsibility. Then it also does weird things. So I use it, like I have a weekly newsletter, and I'm a good writer, but it takes me a lot of time, and it can just like it drains me. So I've developed like a bot that helps me. I've got a topic that I want to write about, and it helps me think through it and write it. But it still takes me about 6-7 hours because I want to just write, and AI doesn't quite know what I want, and I don't know what I want, but I get there eventually. But then sometimes it will just like I have 11 points for this, and the next moment it had dropped 4 of the points. And then it does this, and then it does that. And like, you have to pay attention to that as well. It can just drop things, or it can just add something else, and you have to notice that. Then you must also know which tool is the right tool to use. You've got your normal ChatGPT, but then you've also got the reasoning models, and you've got the research models, and like to better understand how they fit together. And then you have these specialized tools. At the moment, I find a lot of these specialized tools aren't good enough yet. They've just not had enough time to build something proper. Like, if you think about it, it's most businesses in the AI space are 1 to 1.5 years old. They're still figuring out and trying to see how these models fit together. So you have to do your homework and just double check everything. Then there's also that risk of putting sensitive information into ChatGPT. I generally am a little bit less worried about that, because it doesn't go store it somewhere like Google does, or like in a little shelf, but it's almost a little bit the way I see it, as a drop of blood in the ocean of AI patterns and weights. But I would still be careful, because you are held responsible. If the AI hallucinates and you send an email to a client, you are responsible. If AI uses some of the information, you're responsible for what you put in. And there are some tricks and tools to make sure it doesn't hallucinate, but you have to learn those.
What I wanted us to maybe do at the moment is, we've talked quite a bit about what is possible. And I just wanted us to maybe bring the conversation to a close in terms of a few things that you would want anybody watching to stay with post the discussion that we've just had. So, in as many points as you want, what would you say you would like for somebody to take away from this discussion?
I was going to say how many points, but I'll tell you at the end. So first point is,
Yeah, I think the first point is, so most people are using it to write emails, like AI to write emails, and just using Monday.com because they have to. They don't fully understand it. So if you think about AI, there's not really a learning curve. I can use it for the first time now, and I'll be like, wow, great answers. But there are some tools and some like principles you can learn to actually 10x what you're currently getting and how to use it. So I would invest some time to just go and learn a little bit. There are great YouTube videos, and I can also give a few resources that just give you a really good understanding of what to do and how it works and how it all fits together. In an hour or two, you can actually like go from that level 0 where you use it as a glorified Google and writer to something a little bit more in depth. And then if you start just learning basic automation skills, you can actually go one level up where you can create nice little automations, or you build your own chatbot. If you, like for me, my writing chatbot, I've just broken down my process and my tone of voice and how I like things done, and it actually saves me quite a lot of time as well. And it's not hard to do. It's really not hard to do. I think just learning the principles. I also think that I completely agree on how leaders should embrace it. They should start sharing how they're using AI each week, anything they've seen, and encourage people. Just that facilitation, open conversation. If you're not even training your employees, you just start talking about it and asking people to show you what they're doing, asking people who, like finding out who's interested in it. Almost say, like, we're going to give 10% of our employees licenses and see who the keen ones are. Because the reality is you don't have to buy everyone a license, because most people aren't going to use the license for ChatGPT. They use it so limited. And you create that FOMO in your business. Then I think it's also teaching employees how to think in terms of workflows, how to break down what they're currently doing, get them to be a little bit more diligent about capturing their day-to-day activities so that they can start seeing where repetitive tasks are. But I think the most important thing for me is leaders are responsible for their employees, and if they are not starting to bring in digital transformation, they're actually not just having the risk of their business being left behind and closed down, but every person in that business will not be able to find a job going forward once their business has closed down because they're just 20 times more expensive and more inefficient, and the customers' satisfaction is super low. But all those employees won't be able to find a job because the good ones have left because they saw the ship was sinking, and they're just leaving these people to be completely obsolete and don't have a future. So for me, it's almost like one of my passions is that human potential development, but also making sure nobody gets left behind, that smaller businesses in South Africa don't get left behind, but that employees also don't get left behind. So there's this thing of, sure, you can sit there and procrastinate, but this is bigger than just you. It's about the people and their families, and making sure that jobs don't get lost because you didn't take action. Like, the leader shouldn't be the one because they didn't take action that jobs are lost. And a lot of people think it's AI that's going to make people lose jobs, but it's like people who don't respond and don't actively take a step towards that cause the job losses.
So a few words or phrases have stayed with me post our conversation. The first one is disruption. That's basically the urgency around adopting some of these tools, is that you don't get left behind, to use Jason's words. And it's important to gain some sort of momentum towards not being one of those that are left behind. The other one is mindset, and that the adoption of these tools actually requires us to think a bit differently about what these tools could mean for the organizations that we're in. And then the other one is a phrase, job to be done, borrowed from you, Jason, which is really being clear about where it is that there is opportunity to leverage some of these tools in your organization. And then I think the other one is starting somewhere. I think I use the word momentum, but start somewhere and have that curiosity to start trying things in the areas where you've identified there to be opportunity, and then take it from there in terms of building on that momentum and starting to have real traction in what is possible for your business, whether big or small, investor or entrepreneur. So to the both of you, thank you very much for joining me in this discussion. I learned a lot, and I hope it was enjoyable to you too.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you very much.